I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how to increase utilization of your business systems, allowing your Business Central and NAV solution to be a catalyst for your business growth and profitability. When we're done, I'll let you know how you can get in touch to put your goals and ideas into action and start moving your business forward. This episode, I'd like to talk with you about how you can decide what you want to accomplish in the next year. How can you plan for improvement? We've talked through quite a few things related to business process improvement, including the pace of change, change management, the return on investment on improvements. But I wanted to spend a little time with you today talking about how you recognize what the things are that you can plan for improvement and how you can put them together as a solid plan for the next year. One of the first things I would suggest is look for which of those improvements need to be made and decide which you want to be proactive about. We often hear about being proactive versus reactive. And one of the very good reason for an improvement to make your list is because you're keeping ahead of it. If we feel that we only put improvements in place in response to a crisis or something going wrong or just having to do it finally, then we're being reactive. So when you look at your list of potential improvements, think about which of those you are able to be proactive with, and which of those things you can get ahead of so that you can avoid being reactive later. Once you've got this list together, absolutely spend some time to prioritize it. Which things are important and which things aren't. It's all too easy to look at your list and say, I could knock these ones out pretty quick. Let's work on those and get them done, when they really aren't a priority. That's how we end up having a lot of improvements in place that really aren't a priority to begin with. So really sit down and evaluate what the priority of those are. If you're not sure, you might go back to your return on investment that we talked about in one of our prior episodes and evaluate what the total savings is when you work in not only the return on investment, but the opportunity cost and the timeline gain you can get from that improvement. Once you have the proactive, prioritized list, now is the chance to sit down and really calculate the ROI on the whole list and balance things out a little bit. You may need to decide, once you see this list, how well your company is going to be able to absorb the rate of change that will be necessary to be able to put this into play. And you might very likely have to make some adjustments in how quickly you can accomplish those tasks when compared to the weight of the other regular work that needs to be done. Or as you look at the ROI on that and evaluate the acceptable rate of change that your organization can absorb, it might be time to look at bringing in some additional help so that you can see the benefits of those improvements without overburdening your existing team. This is not a one-time thing. It really shouldn't be something that you do only once a year, although if you've never done it before, now's a great time to start. Our organization reevaluates our list quarterly. We have a planning meeting that incorporates this type of list, and this is something that we evaluate quite frequently. And when we work with our customers, we do the same thing. We always have a working list of what the plan is for the next 90 days, but we are absolutely prepared at that 90 days to reevaluate and maybe even reprioritize the list. It's normal for us to change frequently, and it's normal for change to be at a very frequent pace. When we do that reevaluation, we're never surprised to learn that there's a new condition that's occurred that didn't even exist 90 days ago. So in order for us to be nimble and competitive, you've got to be prepared to have those new priorities come into play. One of the reasons why we evaluate this every 90 days, though, is we don't want to constantly be influenced by the flavor of the day emergency. You may have some true emergencies that require instant change, but in order to keep the chaos down to a dull roar, we do attempt to stick to the plan at least every 90 days, but plan to react as quickly as we can once we've identified new priorities for whatever our next 90-day plan is going to be. Hopefully hearing that helps you decide how you can plan and how you can have your proactive and prioritized list work for you throughout the year. I want to talk with you a little bit about symptoms of processes that need improvement. Sometimes we may not recognize the things that need improvement. Some of them are easy, where we very obviously think, my gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. Or we hear the complaints of our coworkers or team members as they talk about how something takes a very long time to do or is cumbersome. But there are other things that are a little bit more subtle, and these are some of the symptoms that I want you to watch for. Certainly watch for processes that are slow. If we have a process that seems to take a very long time, and we really put it up against that measuring stick of reasonableness, finding things that take a very long time or that are slow are great examples of processes that we should be observing to see why they're slow. And that's often a good candidate for putting on our improvement list. Looking for things that are time intensive. When I talk with accountants, very frequently, one of the questions I'll ask them are, which accounts on your balance sheet take a long time to reconcile? Hours at a time, or maybe even a few days to get through. These definitely go on my hot list of things to be improved. Because with the ability that we have to manipulate data and produce reports, we shouldn't have to go through a time-intensive, long evaluation of most data. We should have systems in place that can handle the majority of that. What about things that are manual? If we are doing things manually, where we have to hand enter things or move things from one place or another in order to finish them, those are some good candidates. And along with that is duplicate data entry. If we have to enter data into one system and then also enter that data into another system, that's definitely a red flag for something that needs a process improvement. I always tell my customers that whenever you're doing any kind of data entry, you should only have to do it in one place, never more than once. What about systems that don't talk to each other? If you're looking for things that require duplicate data entry, this may be an additional symptom of different systems that are not integrated to each other. So they might require separate data entry. They might require separate reconciliation to make sure that they're staying in sync because they're not connected. So those are definitely some good options. What about processes that rely on paper? If we have to print something out and bring it to somebody for a signature, let's say, and then bring it back and put it back into the system, that's definitely a place for improvement. What about receiving something electronically that we then print out, take some kind of an action, and then bring it back into the system electronically? You'll be surprised at how many times you find that people do this, and people just do it out of habit. If they haven't gotten into the practice of not using paper, this is something that we often see. Look for where there are printers in your organization. If you have a printer on each person's desk, or if you have many printers in smaller departments, or in this remote environment, if you have a printer at each employee's home, this is definitely something to question. For the most part, ERP systems are contained, and you can replicate almost anything that you have recorded in there without having to print it out. So watch for the things that rely on paper and processes that must have a printer in order to proceed. Similarly, look at what is using Excel. This is a harder one because this really gets kind of buried in people's processes. Using Excel is a pretty normal analysis tool. It's got its purposes, but especially in the area of accounting, I think that we go there a little too easily sometimes, and it actually causes more manual work. And we've got a decent amount of risk involved that may cause mistakes because we're dealing with things manually when we're working with Excel. Think about the flow of work. Where are there bottlenecks? Approvals are always a big piece here. If you have approvals that need to happen, how long does it take those approvals to get through the system? How long does something sit on somebody's desk where no action is happening and somebody's waiting on that and it's holding up some other process? So approvals are a big source of bottlenecks, something to watch for. Certainly, this is probably one that you're more than well aware of. What processes does your team complain about? When we talk about the things that stress us out in a particular day, I can almost guarantee you there's some process behind that could probably use some improvement. Even worse though, what processes do your vendors and your customers complain about? If your vendors or your customers are complaining about a process that is something that you can control within your organization, this is absolutely something that could be moved up to the top of the list, because happier customers and happier vendors are ultimately the thing that we want. The final thing that might help you to put together your list is to bring in an outside group to do a business process improvement assessment. This is something we do for our customers all the time. In fact, we usually start with this assessment. Having an outside view, having somebody who's not invested in your particular business or has no preconceived notions about how you do business is probably one of the best things you can do to be able to get a good read on this, especially if this is something that you've never done before or you haven't been in the practice of making process improvement an iterative thing in your organization. A good starting point for going with a project like this is definitely to get an assessment from somebody who's not involved with your organization. Another way that we look at business process improvement instead of these lists of symptoms is really by looking at it by functional area. If you think of the different functional areas in your organization and you break them down, so it's not just accounting, but it might be order processing, accounts receivable, collections. Looking at business processes in those functional areas and spending some time to observe and ask questions is one of the things that will help you to look at this in a different way, in addition to the other list of symptoms that I just gave you. We've developed a checklist to help you examine where your best improvements could begin. You can use our business process improvement checklist, which you can find at the link below, to run through the areas that you'd like to focus on in the next year. In our next episode, we'd like to share some success stories from our team on how business process improvement has made a difference with our customers. I'm Carrie Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you. Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you suspect that there just has to be a better way, but you don't know what that is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies will tap into the true power of Dynamics Business Central and NAV for your company by helping you to rethink today for tomorrow. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.